Sorry.
Right. Did the record button scare you, Sherry?
No, my phone just fell off.
Oh, I see. Because it was timed so perfectly. It is when Andy, you've frozen. Oh no, you haven't frozen. There you go.
I'm like a ninja waiting to pounce.
You did appear very frozen, to be honest. So yeah. We should all do that at the moment. Yeah, so it will be general updates. Link, I don't know how much of an update you want to provide on your initiative. Nick's obviously got a bit of a demo. On the wider small outside, where are we? So we are still very much focused on looking at the revenue model on this. How does this work? There has been some good thinking, but I was hoping for it to mature to a good level by today to be able to share it, but I think it will have to wait for the next one now. There is a better articulation, which I will share. A lot of my time has gone towards looking at the actual platform again from a technology perspective to make it easier to respond to new ideas. Again, a little early to share a preview version, but it is baking quite rapidly now, which is good news. But other than that, it's just BAU, slow and steady pace. Nothing rapid happening, certainly on small outside front. Are there any questions or any thoughts before we hand to Nick to present his Minion Detector? No? Over to you, Nick, then.
Thanks, Dash. Every time you say present my Minion Detector, I'm trying to change the world here. I've built a Minion Detector. But yeah, so as a reminder, I'm trying to set up a business. Standup Computing is the working title, that introduces computing without focusing on the coding, and introduces it to young children from ages 8 upwards, something like that. So for this demo, you need to put yourself in the shoes of a 8, 9, 10-year-old, somebody who may or may not have coded before, and somebody who may have some preconceptions about what computing is and what it involves. And what I'm demoing today is it's the first part of a workshop, a 90-minute workshop that I'm gradually developing. This is what I prototyped. This was my MVP. And yes, it is to do with artificial intelligence or image recognition or image classification, to be accurate. And it's meant to be a fun example that the kids will get on with, and they'll learn a lot about the what it means to train a computer to recognize something. So the equipment I would be turning up to school with would be a suitcase full of Raspberry Pis. That's a Raspberry Pi if you haven't seen one before. Battery powered. I try and have as few cables as possible. There's a webcam attached to each Raspberry Pi, and I would split the classroom up into groups of 3 people. And these 3 people will work in teams. And each team will have 1 Raspberry Pi, and each team will have a tablet, probably, that is their user interface to the Raspberry Pi. The Raspberry Pi doesn't by default come with a screen or anything, so you have a web interface from a tablet. So time to share. Oh, sorry, Dash, can you make me a presenter?
Yes, sorry. Let me do that.
And this activity...
Yep, you've got control.
But it's a stretchy activity. It would take a minimum of 20 minutes, and it could be stretched to fill an hour. What am I doing? I'm sharing that one. There we go. Okay, so this is the kind of web page you would get on a tablet if you were in the green team connected to the green Pi. Very minimalistic. That's partly because I'm not very good at styling web pages, but partly because I'm just trying to keep the amount of things on this web page to an absolute minimum. So setting the scene, I would have done a bit of a an introduction to explain why there are some problems that lend themselves to programming using rules-based programs, which is what the kids will have encountered if they've done any kind of coding before at this age. You know, program a robot to go 10 steps forward, 10 steps left, another 10 steps forward. It's following a pre-programmed algorithm. There are some problems that can be solved like that, and there are other problems that it's much harder to solve using rules. And one such problem would be, how do I recognize something in a picture? Or indeed, how do I recognize a minion? If you're not sure what a minion is, it's one of these. If you're still seeing my camera, and that'll come up in a minute. And I've just chosen a minion because they are a universal character. So the first task would be, there are 3 phases of using machine learning, artificial intelligence. If you haven't come across AI before, the 3 phases are: you gather training data, that's kind of reference images. You use those reference images to teach the machine what you're trying to recognize, and then you test the machine, you evaluate it with images that it's not seen before. So the first task for the children would be to capture some training images. Let me just go to the teacher page. Right, hopefully that is now showing. So first task is to capture pictures of minions and capture things that aren't minions. You have to teach the computer both sides of the classification. So the child would take some pictures of a minion, a minimum of 10, and then they would take some pictures of things that aren't a minion. I am not a minion, so I can take 10 pictures of myself. They then train. So this is where you're feeding these 20 training images into a machine learning algorithm, and it figures out what the features that define a minion are and what the features that define not a minion are. It takes about 30 seconds to train. Training is always the slow part of all AI. And each team will obviously take in different pictures, depending on what props I feed them with and where they are sitting in the classroom. And I'm just waiting for the training to have completed. There we go. So it is now running the image classification algorithm against the webcam, and it's deciding that what it's looking at the moment is not a minion. And if I bring a minion in, it decides that is a minion. No minion, minion. And just like in real life, this is not a binary thing. There are degrees of minionness, and that's what that needle is trying to indicate, because again, that becomes quite relevant. So how accurate is your model? Now, again, the handy thing about minions is that they are very recognizable for a computer with very little training. And if I come out the picture, it's even more of a minion. But you can already start to show that the training data you gave the machine is very relevant. So it's pretty confident that is a minion. And it's confident that's a minion as well. Give it a different minion. It's a little bit less sure because I'm showing it a slightly different character than what it's been trained on. Yeah, and each team will be getting different results. So each team would be experimenting to see the accuracy of their particular model that they've trained. Once they're happy with the accuracy of theirs, we then enter into a quiz mode, whereby it's hands off their Raspberry Pis at that time. And we say, okay, now let's test how well your Raspberry Pis perform on images that they have definitely not seen before. So as an example, we might send each of the teams this picture of a minion. We will see how each team scores. So in the green team, yeah, okay, we did quite well on that. We decided it was definitely a minion. And let's see how the green team scored compared to the other teams. Oh, sorry, I need to just do something behind the scenes. I need to simulate a room full of Raspberry Pis, even though I actually only have one Raspberry Pi here. Okay, let's try that again. Right, train that minion. show the result for the green team, and then see how the green team did compared to all the other teams. And let's say there were 5 other teams in the classroom, and you see they all did fairly well on that particular Minion image, which is what you would expect because it is quite similar to the training images. You can then try purple Minion. Does colour affect the accuracy of the recognition? No, it seems to have still scored fairly highly on that. What about the other teams? Yeah, we're still generally doing okay. The blue team scored a little bit less well. What about a banana? Things start to get a little bit more interesting now. Ooh, the computer's really not sure whether that's a Minion or not. And how did the other teams do? So we get a bit more variation. As the images kind of drift away from something that is definitely a Minion, we get very different results. Maybe the magenta team happened to train their model on pictures of bananas, or maybe they didn't, and so on. We can try lots of different things. Now you see that a misclassification. It said it was a Minion, but it's not a Minion, and all the teams struggled with that one. So I'm going through this quiz kind of faster than I would in real life. But the point is that the teams are seeing that the accuracy or the reliability of their model, it is not perfect. It depends on what you trained it with, and it depends on what you're then, how challenging the images you're showing it are. So this is the context of a Minion detector. This would probably be the minimum length of activity that I would run. But if we've got more time, another 20 or 40 minutes, we can have a look at some other models. So we've trained it for Minions. What about if we train it to recognize a hand or a face? I've pre-trained this one with some dubious images of my hand and my face. Again, let's see how my own model handles that at the moment. Yeah, it's kind of okay. Yeah, it finds hands and faces harder to distinguish than Minions. And again, we could launch into a kind of a whole group, a group quiz almost on hands and faces. And again, all the time that a lot of what I'm demoing to you here is kind of trigger points for discussions. Why is it that hands and faces might be harder to recognize than Minions? You know, the answer being that Minions have very recognizable big circles around their eyes, which a computer can spot very easily. That's not so easy on hands and faces. Hands and faces can be in all kinds of different positions. And also, at any point, we can have a look at the leaderboard, see how the teams are doing compared to each other, their cumulative scores. And I think for the older age groups, maybe 10-year-olds, we could, I think I need to get teacher opinion on this, but we could say, okay, you've seen some of the issues a computer has recognizing hands and faces. What about if you were asked to train a computer to recognize sad or happy expressions? Now, this is kind of drifting into a whole world about the ethics, whether you should be asking a computer to recognize, what the challenges are, you know, what the risks are about if you misclassify. But again, the takeaway is that it gets much harder for a computer to recognize happy and sad faces, just because the range of possible images is so vast. And again, they would realize this is why you need to train machines with thousands or millions of images for them to stand a chance of accurately recognizing stuff. But again, I think all that ethics, it's a very interesting thing, and it's definitely worthy of a discussion. We were talking last week on the mastermind. Maybe it's not something we put in there right at the beginning, and you certainly wouldn't want to end on the happy, sad challenges. But for older age groups where you've got a bit more time and you can go in depth, I think the ethics has got to be covered at some point. And finally, I could just kind of let them go freestyle, where you just leave each team to train whatever they want using anything they can find in the classroom. So it might be distinguish a textbook and a pencil, or a table or a chair. And again, just let them get on with that and kind of maybe present back what they found. So that is the essence of what I wanted to show. It's I mean, the AI of it behind the scenes is not particularly complicated. It can't be particularly complicated because it has to run on a Raspberry Pi. There are websites already out there that allow people to do, children to do in-browser image recognition. Google has a very well-known one called Teachable Machine. I think the unique thing I've done here is that all these Raspberry Pis are networked together so that they can exchange their results, because I think adding that competitive edge to it, seeing how accurate was my model compared to your model, I think children really like those kind of quiz style competitive games, and it makes them think about how can I improve the accuracy of my model so that I score better. So another option is that we run one round of Minion Detector and then I say, okay, now go and improve your model, see if you can increase your scores. Give them 5 minutes to take more training pictures, and then we run the quiz again and see if their scores have improved. The other thing that's not apparent here, not apparent to the children, is that a lot of the work I've been doing for the past couple of months is about building up this kind of framework of the Raspberry Pis talking to one another and being supervised, if you like, by a teacher, because the next part of the workshops I want to prototype involves a classroom full of Raspberry Pis all sending messages to one another, not just image recognition at that point, speech to text, text to speech, a bit of image recognition, a bit of rules-based programming, object detection, all kinds of things. And that's kind of part of my bigger plan, to have this machine, have a class create a machine that accomplishes a goal, but it's built up from 6 or 10 Raspberry Pis, each doing an individual task and each collaborating with the other Raspberry Pis in the room. So I've made good progress towards getting that framework up and running behind the scenes, but yeah, as far as the children concerns, this is just an image classification exercise so far. So that is me. Be very interested to hear any thoughts, if you feel as if it's appropriate for the age group I've talked about, if you think there's anything I should cover or shouldn't cover, or just, yeah, any feedback is always useful.
So you had our feedback last week, Nick, so I won't repeat that. But what would be useful to probably share some of the feedback you're receiving from your... You have started trialing with teachers, haven't you?
I haven't done the Minion Detector. I was doing something else with a teacher today. I've got sessions booked with a teacher on Friday this week and hopefully another one next week. So that will be the first time I can show that live demo to a teacher.
It'll be interesting to see what the field thinks about it, because when you present it on these screens, they just look lovely. But does it actually fit the market is almost the question here, isn't it? Sherry, take it away. You've got your hands up.
Yes, I just wanted to say that's very impressive, Nick. I think it's very engaging too for children, and it just feeds their creativity. So I'm sure you've done some, testing with kids. Did you find that they're really excited by this?
I mean, so far the children I've tested it on are my own children. They're a little bit biased. But I know that children, as I said, they love a competitive game.
Yes.
Anything where they can see themselves on the screen, that always goes well. But I think what you say about the creativity, it's surprising as to what I think there is a creative aspect to this, because it's surprising as to how you can get a range of models and accuracies just by choosing what you take a photo of. And I think it really does get the child to think about, okay, what defines a minion? Is it just their eye? Is it their color? Does the whole headshot need to be there, or can I just have a minion peeking up like that? Is the color of the minion relevant or not? So it gets them thinking much more broadly about what are the distinguishing characteristics of a minion, or indeed humans, as you move on to the human targets. So yeah, I was actually surprised by the amount of variation there was in there, and the scope for creativity, or the scope for variation in the results.
Yeah. Thank you for that.
Thanks, Sherry.
It is very impressive. Even as an adult, I'm quite excited seeing it.
Well, that's a good sign, because it's got to appeal to the teachers as well. And yeah, if it has also got a secondary purpose of introducing what AI is, or what the
Yes.
stages of AI
Yes.
are to an adult, then all the better. And you know, parents as well. It would be great to be able to interact with children and their parents. Obviously, that's quite hard when I'm there during a school day, but if it appeals to grown-ups, that's a good sign in my view.
Yeah, you'll probably find more grown-up students than kids now.
That's all right.
I have to say, Nick, you know, I didn't consciously think about the steps in AI, but you know, when you said that, I just realized, yes, you have to feed AI enough data for it to start recognizing things, you know. Yeah, so that helped to learn how machine learning and AI work together. So even as adults, I think there's quite a bit of learning for teachers, and should parents decide to get involved. And I think that probably should be a strategy too, to feel free to get your parents involved. You never know, you know, it might really, you know, become some snowball into something that parents also might like to get involved.
Yeah, and I think you can have some much more mature conversations with adults about that, the ethics side of it as well.
Yeah.
Because I think that is one of the educational goals, is for people to understand they know their data is being captured. Why do you need millions of pictures of people in order to program a car to recognize what a human is and how to avoid a human? You know, 10 images is not enough to recognize a minion. So yeah, I'd love to do more kind of with the adults, but equally my primary goal is to educate children, because they're going to be well, we're all aware of it, but children, again, I want the kids just to have that basic understanding. And it's surprising how quickly you can get that basic understanding of what it means to train a computer.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sherry.
Thank you.
Andy, your hand up?
I think, just echoing probably what everybody's thinking, Nick, but it looks really good. It's a really nice, tight lesson to be able to be run. And I suppose I'm just adding to the thing really of just supporting you, but I can see this being a short, for the older students, so GCSE A-level age, being a short demo, and then having a conversation around so positive things of AI. I think there's a pub somewhere that the older kids are going to like the idea of, that maps who's next at the bar. It was in the news this week or last week. It basically overlays, so when you get to a bar and the bar staff can't remember who's next, this overlays a number on you, and you can see the screen behind the bar, so you know if you're 1, 2 or 3, and obviously your number goes up in the queue. After number 1 served, you become number 1, and so on.
That's really cool.
So nobody needs to push anyone out of the way and all that stuff. It basically avoids the need to queue, in a manner of speaking. Lovely. Yeah. And then negative things. It's a few years ago when I saw this, but I think there was somewhere in a block of flats had made AI the way that you access the flat. Yep. But the images they'd got were basically all white people, and I'm saying, I can't remember the specifics. There were black people trying to get into the building who couldn't get in because the computer hadn't been taught this is what a black person looks like. It's only been taught this is a white person. So suddenly this clever AI that let people in and out. But I think the point of the panorama thing was that it was deliberately, somebody had been deliberately racist rather than accidentally racist. Okay. I don't think that's quite a thing, being accidentally racist, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So you've clearly got those massive gaps that whoever is the AI programmer, whoever's saying this is a minion or this is a human, if they're too blind to realize that humans come in different shapes, sizes, colors, whatever, then it's going to go wrong later down the line. So that ethical piece, you know, there's some really nice cultural examples of where that's good and bad.
Yes, I love those examples.
Yeah. I suppose the bit the bits that I'm thinking are more logistically so I like as a lesson plan, I'm like, yeah, makes absolute sense. It can be refined and added to according to the age group and all that, and I'm in support. I'm curious, there are loads of businesses out there, and I'm thinking of like chemistry ones years ago where they go round schools doing chemistry events with big flashing bangs and whatever. And this I'd sort of put into that category where you'd only really go to a school once, and then you might go next year for another group and so on. It's not a regular lesson. It doesn't need to be. It's a one-off. And I wonder if rather than you going to schools yourself, you just franchise this into one of those businesses. They must exist. They've probably got a plan of how it works and something you can dovetail into. So that's one I'm thinking. And that I think, they were my main points basically. So thanks for letting me feedback.
Thanks, Andy. And it does lend itself to the franchise model. As Dash will have heard me say many times, I'm playing it fairly slow and steady at the moment. I actually want to be the person to begin with, going out there and delivering it to get the feedback. Once it's stable and it's time for me to scale up, it is reassuring knowing that it is franchisable. In terms of the repeatability, whether what I'm developing is a one-off visit or 2-off visits or a whole series of visits, I'm not quite sure yet. What I've shown here could become, there's enough here to be one visit, and as I said, I've got another activity I'll start working on, which is at least a second visit. But yeah, most of these informal educators, as they're called, do just do a one-off visit, and they're aiming to get a repeat booking every year. But obviously, if there's only one of me, there's a very small number of schools I can get around each year. So the impact I have is severely limited until I take the plunge and scale up. But yeah, I think sorry, go on.
Sorry, Nick, I'm interrupting. But I was going to say, have you looked at the curriculums to see where this fits in? So where is the bit where the teacher goes, oh, let's bring Nick in for this module? And
okay. I'm quite familiar now with the national curriculum, and I mean, artificial intelligence is not on the curriculum yet. So there might be some schools that say, to be honest, we just need help with coding. We don't want to go this far off curriculum. But what is on the curriculum is computing systems. So the idea of building a computer up from small components, which happen to be using machine learning, that has got a guaranteed hook into the curriculum. And again, I think I know teachers struggle to illustrate, they struggle to teach coding, but they struggle to illustrate the real world types of computing systems. So yeah, I'm not, at the moment, I'm not worried about this not mapping onto the curriculum. I think there will be some schools who will probably jump at it, either because they're forward-looking schools or because they just need help teaching the curriculum or making it relevant. Yeah, it will be a nice problem to have scaling up when I get to that stage.
But I think the model you've got is intrinsically scalable, which is a good thing, as lesson plans have always been. So yeah, no, it's good to see you progress nicely. It's a very nice, steady pace, Nick. Quite impressive.
Thank you.
Yeah. Balaji, you've got your hand up.
Oh, yeah.
Hi, Nick.
Yeah. Hi.
It's quite impressive. You've done a fantastic job over the last few weeks since you started speaking about it. I listened to your pitch first time, didn't get grasp of the full concept.
So but, hopefully it's clearer now.
Yeah, much clearer. But on the same note, the same model with a little bit of alterations can fit into somewhere where, in corporate world where people like me, although we're supposed to understand this, we don't understand as much as we should about AI. It could work for them as well as I know it's not an education session that they can go through, but as a part of a lot of people do management consultancy and do do visit companies and talk to people, train them up. So this can fit in there quite well, I think. But we need, you need to design and come up with a model that will fit adults.
What you've made me think and remember is that the advantage of having an adult audience, because the other reason I chose Minions is that I'm a little bit nervous about taking pictures of children on webcams in a classroom. So I deliberately use a Minion as a proxy. Obviously, if you're doing adults, they can all just give you their verbal consent. And of course, then you can start saying, can you train a machine to recognize person one on person two? And as Andy was saying, the idea of do you trust this machine to unlock your phone or unlock your front door? So you can do more with an adult audience because you're a little bit less cautious about the data protection side of it.
Thank you for that.
Thanks for the suggestion. It is reassuring to know that it could work in a corporate world as well as a primary school.
On that note, Balaji, I have in fact requested Nick to give us a bit of an overview of what's under the hood. So it was a poll we were going to take on this call. So if anyone's interested, we can either, if there's a lot of interest, we can put it on the agenda for the next session, or if it's only a few, we can have a separate session. There must be a way to get polls on this chat, but for the moment, if you can just raise your hands if it is of interest to you to know what's under the hood, and my hand goes up on that, certainly. 3, 4, anyone who's not on camera, if you want to go through a, right, 5. Looks like we've got enough interest, 6, okay.
What do you mean that we want to know what goes on under the hood? For me, it's do I understand what's happening under the hood is, not so much, but I guess I could be made to understand. So there you go.
Yeah. No, as in that's a reasonable level of interest, I guess, to maybe host it on the next one. That may be your training for the corporate world. There you go, Nick. Your business is starting to expand.
So is that under the hood as in the technologies I'm using, or more detail about how I train a machine and what frameworks I'm using for the AI bit in particular, as opposed to the web front end?
Not so much the web front end, I guess, but more the AI, what technologies are involved when you say training, what's actually happening there. Is it collecting data in a certain format? How does it then go and match? It's that kind of a little, not to a code level, but not the level that we are at today.
Okay, yep. I shall give that some thought. Be a nice challenge.
Yeah, it'll be good to learn a bit more. I saw Alistair there. Alistair, are you on? Oh, that's interesting. So maybe this chat goes outside, I guess. There you go. Did I have someone's hand raised? Sherry, had you raised your hand and then pulled it down again?
So Sandeep raised it, but then it's gone now.
I was just raising hand for the other thing you were asking.
Right. Got you.
You can join in as well, Dash, with just listening, and then type a few bits.
Oh, I see. Is that what Alistair is doing? Because it doesn't show up here as attendees. I would have thought the person gets listed as an attendee, but maybe just the chat goes on. There you go. Awesome. I think that's the end of Nick's part. Is there anything else, Nick, that you want to add, or anything for Nick?
Thanks all for your time and feedback.
Awesome. Link, do you have any updates to share? You don't have to, but if you've got, then this is the forum to provide this.
I mean, it's crazy. Everything's moving so fast on this end. I met with, they used AI at Harvard to match me with a mentor. And so it's taken them a year. And they finally
they're still training.
Yeah, it took them over a year. So they matched. I got to meet with him this morning. I've also pitched my big new idea, not newest. I mean, it's not new, but it's really honing in on my lean product of being basically a talent hub, an aggregator. So basically, you go in and as a person and create your own profile, and you get to define what a great work day looks like for you, or what your own destiny looks like, whether you want to be working nights or days and upload your resume. And then basically you use AI to find you, to connect you with the platforms that will connect you with work. Hence Linking Dreams. That's a very short version of the lean product. And so I pitched it to John Healy and the powers that be at CTW and the Open Assembly, and they all loved it. And so they said that they would offer collaboration on it. I met with others individually, and so I got about 5 platform owners so far that said that they would be the guinea pigs to try it out and whatnot. So now I'm just on a race to find the financial person that's going to advise on how to set that up and what it's going to cost and what the cost of build out is going to look like. And I think I may have found my lawyer. So I found him. It's a matter of him saying yes. so I've identified who I want. So things are moving really fast, and I'm very excited. The pitch competition, if I make it as a finalist, which I believe I will, is on June 25th in Cambridge, Massachusetts, in person. So I will be going to Cambridge in June to graduate and walk. So things are moving fast. I'm very excited, and yeah, more updates to come. Hopefully, I'm going to put this stuff in slides. You know, I have the slides partly built already so that you guys can see it. I'll present in a few weeks. Kind of a more detailed approach.
Awesome.
Thank you.
You know where guinea pigs sit, right? So if you want to practice your pitch deck, this is the forum for it. we will be your honest critics. Absolutely.
Yeah. I appreciate that, and I plan to because the feedback I got the last time was very good and valuable, because it definitely allowed me to hone in on what I really want to do with my product. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks.
And Nick, good job.
That's good. And Balaji, you do you have any updates on your energy project that you are kind of playing with in the background?
Still early stages, Dash. I still need to figure out a few things. Then we'll be in a better position to move it forward. A few things I need to iron out before I make up my mind. I haven't yet. So
yeah, awesome.
I'll keep you posted.
Yeah. Whenever you're ready, I like asking a follow-up question only to make sure that that vision is still being held in the mind somewhere, so that you actually bring it to reality.
Yeah, still there. Yeah, very much.
Brilliant. Are there any more from any more? We don't have to use the full hour, but if there isn't anything else, we can conclude the call. I do want to actually ask one thing, which some people have requested. With COVID restrictions ending, people are starting to go back into offices, and this slot used to work really well for people, but it's becoming a little inconvenient. Do you guys have a view on whether it's working, whether we need to move it out by an hour, or weekends? I don't think it's going to work. Or does Wednesday still work? Any thoughts on that?
From my point of view, if it moved backwards an hour, I would be okay with that.
So 6 o'clock UK start is okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, if people need more time to get back from work, for example.
Yes.
Yeah, I just need to know when it is, and then I don't change time zone. So if you do it, send an invite from the calendar so it auto goes to mine, or at least write in the time zone, 3-letter time zone code, so that I can Google what time is it in that time zone. I'm not kidding you. I have to do this with every single meeting I set, unless somebody goes to my Calendly app.
Right, now we will make sure it will be. So 1 hour on the right, we've got one vote for that. Any other thoughts, guys?
I still vote for, this is a good time for me, even though I have to rush back from somewhere. But if it were to shift later, it starts to conflict with the evening routine with the kids, I'd say.
Yeah. Any more thoughts, guys?
So the current vote right now
Yes,
is to
I'm
move
also
it
okay
back
for
by
now.
1 hour.
Yeah, my preference is same time. Yeah, continue the same time. Works, but I can flex by rest it for another hour. I don't mind, but this is my first preference.
Right. As in, there was one thought. I know Sharon struggles to join because of children's feeding time and things like that. The other option is to alternate it. So one at 5, maybe one at 7. So something like that, and see if that works. Maybe we try it out and see what works, I guess. And in terms
Now,
of
when
sorry.
now, quick question. Now, when you all are saying keep it same time, we just had daylight savings time last weekend, and this meeting didn't change. I mean, it stayed the same on my calendar, even though daylight savings happened. So, aren't you guys having this an hour later
No.
in your own time zones than before?
Next one will be, right? Not this one. So we change at the end of March, last week of March, I think.
Okay. So when you guys are saying same time, it'll be an hour later next one.
Yes. Yeah, so the next one we'll keep it for the same time UK, 1 hour later for you. Like, I'll just make sure you know where we are on that day.
Please do. Don't. I'll be showing up at the end of it, or an hour early or something. It's terrible. I hate it when that happens.
Yeah, let's keep to the same time to avoid that confusion. But I think the one after that we can try for 7 o'clock and see whether it works better for everyone. Awesome. I think that's the end of it. Unless anyone else has anything else to add. No? Going once, going twice. Come on, thank you guys. Have a lovely evening.
You
Cheers.
too.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you,
everyone.
Thank you.
Dash.
Bye.
Thank
Cheers,
you.
everybody.
Bye.
Have a good one.